Welcome to Destination Staffordshire's support programme for tourism business. This is our Instagram webinar for small business, and the Instagram webinar is in 3 parts. In part 1, we discussed whether you had the right audience for Instagram and how they fitted into your business. And in part 2, we talked about setting up and optimising your Instagram account. So in part 3, we're going to discuss creating engaging content and analysing your results. For those of you who are perhaps jumping straight into Instagram part 3, then it might be well worth you going to have a look at part 2 of Instagram, because really optimizing your Instagram account and ensuring that you have a business account will make all the difference with regards to your content and how it's received and how you get results. So many Instagram accounts for businesses aren't quite set up correctly, and it's important that you're maximizing your opportunities. So head back over to part 2 first, before you listen to part 3 might be the most useful thing to do. So in part 3, we're talking about creating engaging content. What does engaging content mean? Engaging content means content that gets likes, shares, people commenting on it, and people really enjoying what you're doing and hopefully beginning a new customer journey with you and clicking through to book or to take part in your business. When we talked in part 1 and 2 about what Instagram is all about, it really is about very much a lifestyle theme. People are looking for aspirational content, inspirational content. They're looking for content that's going to teach them something new. It's quite often lifestyle based, so content that is around leisure activities, well-being activities, makeup, fashion, celebrities, places to visit. Travel is huge on Instagram. So if you have that very much in your mind when you're thinking about engaging content, then that will help you get better results. So first of all, let's talk about engaging content, images versus video. Instagram was very much set up based on the uber cool image. It was very much it's always had a style element to it, and image has always been particularly important on Instagram. And although Facebook bought it out and it was felt that Instagram would lose some of its heart when it was taken over by Facebook, in fact, image is still very much king. Images that work best are those images with an aspirational or inspirational feel. Good quality images are an absolute must on Instagram. All images are automatically cropped to be square. They need to be of hugely good quality. Mobile phone images are absolutely fine, but it might well be worth you heading on to a little online course or checking out how to take really great images with your mobile phone in order to maximize the opportunities that there are on Instagram. So it's really important that you create good quality images that are clear, and also the images that really say your brand. So again, this sounds a little bit obvious, but saying your brand is really vital, because when people are traveling through Instagram very quickly, they're scrolling quickly with their thumb, they need to be able to quickly pick up on that look and that feel that they regularly expect from your account. So creating images that have something in common, a common story to tell, a common theme, also works very well on Instagram. Video is also very popular on Instagram, and people watch video on Instagram certainly, and rather like on Facebook, you will initially see videos in silence unless you enable the sound. What you will find though is engagement is slightly lower with video than it is with images, and that's probably because of the action that people take of watching the videos as part of their newsfeed probably makes them feel that they've already engaged with that piece of video, and so they tend not to bother with the like. It might be that they perfectly well do like it, but they just don't seem to engage in the same way. So that's worth remembering with regards to how much your ratio of image versus video is. When you, for all of you who have set up your Instagram accounts and you had a little look, you'll notice that when you head to anybody's bio or profile, that they underneath will have all their images laid out in squares. And this is called the grid, the Instagram grid. And you will also maybe have picked up that quite often people's grids are stunning to look at. That the grids themselves are almost a piece of work. They tell you everything you need to know about that particular brand or business, and that you get a definite feel of style or a definite feeling around it. There's definitely a theme to that grid. And you will even find some accounts that are so stylized that they're all in pale pink, or they're all in black and white, or they're all deep greens. So you will notice that they all have a particular look and a feel. Other accounts will be slightly more eclectic and varied in the types of content that there are, but certainly the best grids will still have a feel to it, so that when somebody heads over to your profile, they immediately get to understand from your images alone what your business is all about. You can even create images in order so that your grid has a larger picture, if that makes sense. So you sometimes accounts can create bits of graphic in an image, and when all those images are put together on the grid, then create a bigger image or a bigger saying or some words. It's worth noting here that when we talk about graphics, that it does play quite a large part in Instagram. So if you're able to use software like Canva.com or Photoshop or PicMonkey to create text over the top of images, and if that's suitable for your particular story and it's suitable for your brand, then that also is a very popular type of engaging content. People love to have sayings, for example. They like to read quotes or things that people have said, or words over the tops of pictures to reinforce the aspirational or the inspirational aspect of that piece of content. So actually creating a beautiful grid is important. That's not to say that you need to be uber stylized if that's not what your brand or your business is about, but it does mean that you need to work towards a real look and a feel to your account in order that people are able to really understand what your business is about and what the feelings are behind it. So we've already talked about content on your grid, and one of the reasons that you are using beautiful images and video are to create that grid and that overall feel. But there may well be other bits of content that you want to share that wouldn't necessarily look so great on your grid all the time. They might be very pertinent to a particular day or time, or they might be something that's very much more behind the scenes in feel, and that might mess up the look of your grid, or it might be pieces of content that you don't need to hang around for ages. And so Instagram really was the inventor of the story, and the story is little pieces of content that are added to your account but only stay on your account for 24 hours. They're temporary pieces of content. Well, mostly. We'll get onto that in a minute. So let's start from the point of view with the assumption that stories are always just fleeting. They are 24 hours. And this is used quite often by businesses who might be hosting an event, and the event images have been on the grid, and the introduction to the event has been on the grid, and the official logo of the event has been on the grid. But then on the day of the event, it might be that there are lots and lots of little mini stories to tell during that day, and on Instagram people expect to see that. They expect to see the behind the scenes, they expect to see the stuff that's really going on, they expect to really get to know the people behind a brand, they expect to get additional added value bits of information via stories all the time. When you head over to stories, you can head to the settings of your stories on the left hand side of stories, and this will give you the opportunity to permanently share your stories over to your Facebook page, or to do that and on an as and when basis. If you feel that the stories are going to appeal to your Facebook audience as well as your Instagram audience, then by all means go ahead and do that. And also, when you head over to stories, there'll be lots and lots of different features and benefits that you can add to that story to make it really pop out and really be appealing to your audience. So this might be text over the image. It might be creating a little boomerang or a slow-mo. So a boomerang is a piece of imagery, say a bouncing ball that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or a slow-mo does exactly what it says on the tin and slows something down. You can also add little GIFs on top of your image, so love hearts that come out, something that you adore, stars, arrows that point at something very particular. So you might, in the example of an event, take your audience through every small detail of that event during the day. So it might be, you setting up the sunrise, people busying themselves, somebody amazing has just arrived, so a picture of them with their arrows, all those sorts of things that take you through that day. The other way that you use stories is to really highlight or reinforce particular things that you'd like your audience to be aware of. So you might have posted the main image as part of your grid. So let's say you'd launched a new menu for your restaurant and you were really excited. You'd taken a beautiful picture of the new dish and that was on Instagram and it was really popular. But then you might also like to place that as a story and put some text over the top and some little pointy arrows and say this lamb is from, and stories that tag in then other businesses or tag in a geolocation also get hugely more engagement than those without. So if, for example, the dish included some beef that was locally produced and locally grown and produced, then you might then tag in the producer at that point and have a little arrow and give them a little bit of you're giving them a little bit of a high five, and everybody gets to see how you connect up with other businesses on Instagram. It really adds to that lifestyle inspirational story theme. You may well have tagged that person into your main piece of grid content too around that new dish, but this just adds value. It's just another way of deepening the message, adding a little bit of fun potentially, and adding extra layers into your day and stories. And as we've already mentioned, Instagram is a platform where people check in regularly at lots of different times of the day. So they will expect to have refreshed stories and new things to see at all times. You can also add video to your stories. So adding video to your stories, they'll only allow you 15 seconds. So it really is either a quick check-in, hi, it's me, or hi, this is us, or we've just opened up the shop, or whatever it is that you're doing. But also you could set up a series. You can add as many stories as you want. So what some people do is add an overall message broken up into 15-second sections and make them consecutive stories throughout the day. This is another way for you to potentially do that. So that's interesting to do. So explore stories and find out exactly how they're going to work for you. You can when you hit stories, you can scroll up and use images that are already in your phone, or you can take photos that are live and there and then. So again, you can play around with all the different options. And again, if you're not sure about how to do this, then start by focusing in on the images and video you're posting on your main grid, and then add in stories a little bit later when you're feeling more confident and you've had a bit of an idea of how other inspirational businesses use it and how you might like to use it for your business. This takes us on to story highlights. So having just said to you that all stories only last on your account for 24 hours, there is now going to be a contradiction to that, which is story highlights. So you may well have noticed, if you scroll around Instagram a little bit, that some people's bios underneath the writing and the link have lots of different circles. They might be branded circles, or they might be just little images with kind of themes underneath. So let's imagine that you are a pub and you have a function room on the side. you have your bar meals, and you have quiz night, and you have live music. So you might decide that as and when you have posted a little story about your live music, then you might decide to create a highlight out of that story, which will be in the settings. It will give you that opportunity when you set the story, and go and pop that in your story highlights on your bio to stay there permanently. So you can then theme the story type. So you might have some highlights that come under menu, you might have some highlights that come under live music, you might have some highlights that comes under function room, so that all the different types of events that go on in your function room are highlighted there. And again, this gives people yet another reason to visit your bio, which is what you want them to do. You want them to click through to your booking place or your website, but also it gives people the opportunity to learn a little bit more about your business and check up on the stories that they've previously missed, for example. So this is a really powerful way to add in extra depth to your bio and to your Instagram account. Let's think about the comment part of your engaging content. So when you add an image or a video onto your main grid, you also want to add some words in about what you're trying to say about that image, for example. And you will notice that some people write absolute essays as part of the text underneath as part of their post, and some people write almost nothing and just add some emojis and some hashtags. The choice is yours, really. And it might be that you want to start using insights to see which of those posts are more popular than others, the ones with more text or the ones with less text. But certainly, I think initially you need to be adding some kind of comment under your images in order that people can really start to get a feel for what your business is about, what's important to you, what your values are, what you're highlighting as part of your business, and why perhaps they might want to book with you. So let's think about adding in something that really tells the story of that image. Again, we've repeated this again and again, that it's about inspirational, lifestyle, aspirational. It's about learning something new. It's about being prompted to be interested in something different and new, and about planning leisure time. Travel is hugely important in terms of Instagram. So rather than just putting in the comment, this is our 2-bedroom ensuite bedroom, then you would be putting comments much more like, imagine waking up to this and looking at that view with a cup of tea. So you get the feel, you get the meaning of what we're trying to say here. So choosing how much comment you put in is entirely up to you. What you do want to do on your pieces of content is add hashtags. Anecdotally, the data seems to show that about 10 hashtags is the optimum number. But again, you will notice accounts that add a lot more than that and accounts that add a lot less than that. You want to use hashtags in a variety of ways. You want to use hashtags that anchor down the subject area of that picture. So if you've posted a picture of somebody in a yoga pose in a beautiful view because you want to invite people to come to yoga retreats at your place, then you will clearly use the hashtag yoga. But the competition for that hashtag is huge because yoga will have been used, and Instagram will give you these figures every time you post in a hashtag. It will tell you how many times it's been used, which is super useful. But yoga will have been used millions and millions of times across the whole of the Instagram platform. So it's important then that you might use a secondary hashtag that made it more specific to you. So you might then put yoga retreat, and then you might put another hashtag yoga retreat Staffordshire. So you can start to see how you're narrowing down the search terms, because people certainly do use that search bar in Instagram to search different words, phrases and hashtags in order to find the content they like looking at. And that's how people use it, so that they don't have their news feeds filled with stuff that doesn't interest them. So practice with your hashtags. Use up to 10 to start with to see how that works. You might like to experiment with using less or more, depending on your audience, and experiment with different types of hashtags. We've already talked about narrowing down the kind of subject area. use of hashtags like yoga retreat, yoga Staffordshire. But then you might also like to add in some lifestyle feelings hashtags too. So you might want to put in hashtag total relaxation, or hashtag away from it all, or hashtag quiet weekend. So start to denote the kinds of feelings you're trying to achieve with your types of content. So we've gone through ideas about engaging content, including images versus video, creating a beautiful grid, adding stories and creating story highlights, comments, and best practice hashtags. But also Instagram gives you, if you've set up the business account properly, gives you powerful analyzing opportunities through their insights, rather like Facebook. So for those of you who are on your Instagram as we're doing this webinar, if you click on the top right hand corner of your app, it will give you the opportunity to look at your insights. Insights are hugely important on Instagram, especially if you are a new user, because it is a new platform for you to use, and you need to be aware of what is popular, what is less popular, what's working for you, what isn't, and also how to build in your how to build on your content strategy, and how to build your story to create that really inspirational and aspirational feel on your Instagram account. So if you click over to Insights, then it will give you lots of different information. And for those of you who are starting out, you won't have a lot of the information there at all yet. But just to take you through the things to look out for, it will initially give you post by post information. So it will give you all your little grid, and then you'll see little numbers in that grid, and that will be your reach. So that is the amount of times that post has been seen by individual accounts. And so that will give you an idea of how often Instagram is showing that piece of content to individual accounts in their news feeds. We've already talked about how they use an algorithm, rather like Facebook. So again, if you have content that's quickly and well engaged with, then your reach will be higher, because Instagram will be more inclined, or its algorithm will think this is a good quality, popular piece of content. We're going to keep passing that around to individual accounts and users. So your reach will then be higher. So it is important to look at reach. You don't need to be well into the hundreds straight away. This is about building your practice and building the quality of your content over a period of time. But once you know what that is, then it is a useful parameter to look at to see if your content is continuing to improve and continuing to be attractive to the users. It will also give you, you'll notice there are 3 options across the top. It will also give you activity, which are the interactions, i.e. the engagement that you've had on your account over the week. And it will usually give you, unless you're a very new user, it will usually give you a comparison with the week before, whether you're up or down, and it will give you an overall comparison of how your engagements are going. So it will also give you information about how your content is doing, and it will also give you information about the interactions with your stories and your promotions, if you have any. So it'll give you all those 3: content, stories, and promotions down there. And those interactions will be things like how many times people visited your profile, how many times people clicked on your website, and how many different accounts were reached. So all that kind of information really is super helpful, because, for example, it might help you refine your content and refine the comments in your content about how to encourage people to head back to your bio and click through, because this is quite difficult. Or to get people to head back to your bio to look at your story highlights, for example. You'll then be able to look at your Google Analytics, for example, your website stats, to see how those people who arrived in from Instagram, how many of them traveled through your website or ended up at a conversion point. So you can do 2 bits of analysis there that will give you the broadest picture about how Instagram is working in terms of your marketing. And then the third little heading in the insights is audience. And again, they will give you your overall number of followers, and you will build those followers over a period of time. It will also give you how many followers you have gained in 1 week over another. Excuse me. It will also give you insights about the locations of your followers too, which is also important. If you are a location-based business, a local business, where you are attracting audience from maybe up to an hour away, this is really interesting information for you to garner whether those people who are likely to travel to your place are following you on Instagram. And again, if you decide to use Instagram advertising, then you might want to put in that audience in order that you are promoting to those people who are already interested, if that makes sense. And it will also give you information about age and gender too. So again, we have already talked about how Instagram fits into your wider marketing, and you might find that you have more women than men, or vice versa, as part of your Instagram audience compared to your Facebook audience. This might help you skew your content a little bit, or it might be surprising to you, or it might be interesting. It's always worth remembering that about 70% of all tourism and leisure bookings are done by women, but it is quite often men who are looking at aspirational, inspirational bits of content too. So this is just something, again, for you to be interested in and to be aware of, so that you're able to assess how your audience is evolving over time and how they're using your Instagram, and whether or not your content is creating the kinds of return on investment in terms of time that you're putting into the platform. It will also give you information about your followers and their activity, which is really interesting. So it'll give you information about when they are on Instagram itself and your followers. So this will really help you refine when you're adding content. And they will also put the time of day during the day when they're most active. And again, this gives you a real hint and tip about when to post content. So try not to be tempted to just post content as and when you remember. Try to post content when it's going to be most interesting to your users and to your audience. You will notice that you can't schedule Instagram posts within Instagram itself. And one of the reasons is that it is called Instagram, and people on Facebook and Instagram are really encouraging you to put as live as possible content on Instagram, because it is about telling the story of your business now. However, there are times when you might want to put scheduled posts out, but you would have to use a third-party platform like Buffer or Hootsuite to do that. And so that would be entirely up to you. And then finally, you will notice that you can do some advertising on Instagram. They give you 2 options for advertising. You can do in Instagram advertising, and they will probably like to choose the audience they think will be best for that piece of advertising. So this makes it really easy, but it also means that you need to be a little bit cautious and think about looking at your insights first to make sure that you're already attracting the types of people you want in the types of location, and that you're posting that piece of promotion at a time which is going to be popular to them. So you can do that, and they will give you a bit of an idea of the kinds of results you'll get. Or you could do something overarching and think about your social media advertising across different platforms as part of a wider marketing plan. And you can, because your Facebook and your Instagram are linked, you could head back over to Facebook Ad Manager and create adverts that then run across both Facebook and Instagram. Now, just be careful that the type of content that you add within that advert is suitable for your Instagram grid as well as for your Facebook. And if you think that that is going to be useful, obviously, if it is an advert promoting an Instagram competition, then it would be pointless doing this, and you would just do an in-Instagram promotion. But if you want to start being much more strategic about your advertising spend and how you place adverts across both platforms, then I would head back to Facebook Ad Manager, from where you can control your Instagram account. in your advertising. And again, as we've already pointed out, within your insights, it will give you then lots of information about how that promotion's going, whether you want to pause it, whether you want to extend it, how it's been received, and what sort of ROI you've got on it. So really very useful business features for your Instagram account. So just to recap then, in this part 3 of the Instagram webinar, we've talked about creating engaging content, and we've gone through lots of different content ideas to help you get started with your Instagram and think about how you're going to start to create a beautiful grid and how you're going to engage your audience using stories in between. And then we've moved on to analysing your results and really digging deep on what your insights are, how your users and followers are using Instagram, how they are interacting with your content, where they're from, etc., will be invaluable to help you build an Instagram reputation and to build your skills.